The morning sun cast long shadows across Millbrook High's parking lot as Emma Reed stepped out of her beaten Honda Civic, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. At 17, she had her father's sharp green eyes and her late mother's stubborn, strict combination that had made her both the school, newspaper's best photographer, and its most persistent thorn in the administration's side. The voice belonged to Tyler Hartman, quarterback, prom king, and son of the town's most powerful family. He leaned against his brand-new Mustang, surrounded by his usual entourage: Jake Morrison, whose father owned half the real estate in town, Ashley Chen, whose mother sat on the school board, and Derek Vance, whose uncle was the district attorney. Emma didn't slow her stride. Still running from the truth, Tyler's smile faltered. For 3 months, Emma had been investigating the Hartman construction scandal. How Tyler's father had used substandard materials in the new elementary school's foundation, pocketing the difference while putting hundreds of children at risk. She was close to breaking the story wide open, and everyone knew it. "You know," Tyler called after her, "some people should learn when to mind their own business." Emma paused at the school's entrance. "And some people should learn that daddy's money can't buy silence forever." The threat in Tyler's eyes was unmistakable, but Emma had faced down worse. Her father had taught her that truth was worth fighting for, especially when powerful people wanted it buried. The school day crawled by in a haze of whispered conversations and meaningful glances. Emma's expose was scheduled to run in tomorrow's paper, and word had leaked. Teachers who usually smiled at her now looked away. Students she'd known since kindergarten suddenly found reasons to avoid her in the hallways. By sixth period, the isolation felt suffocating. Emma slipped out of study hall and headed to the journalism room, where her advisor, Mrs. Patterson, was grading papers. Emma, the older woman, looked up with worried eyes. "I've been thinking about your article. It's solid, Mrs. Patterson. I have documents, testimonies, photographs. I know it's solid. That's what worries me." Mrs. Patterson removed her glasses and rubbed her temples. "Principal Morrison called me into his office this morning. He's concerned about potential legal ramifications." Emma's blood ran cold. Jake Morrison's father wasn't just a real estate mogul. He was also the school board president. "He can't kill the story. This is journalism. This is important. Emma, I've been teaching for 23 years. I've seen what happens when small-town politics clash with big-town corruption. Sometimes the truth isn't enough. It has to be enough." Emma's voice cracked with frustration. "Those kids are sitting in that school every day, and the foundation could collapse at any moment. How do we live with ourselves if something happens, and we said nothing?" Mrs. Patterson's silence was answer enough. Emma stormed out of the classroom, her camera bag bouncing against her hip as she pushed through the crowded hallways. The weight of everyone's stares felt crushing. She needed air, space, somewhere to think. The old quarry on the outskirts of town had been her retreat since childhood, hidden by dense woods and accessible only by an overgrown dirt path. It was where she went when the world felt too heavy. The deep spring-fed pool reflected the sky, like a mirror, surrounded by limestone cliffs that had been carved by some long-dead mining operation. Emma sat on the edge, dangling her feet in the surprisingly warm water, and pulled out her phone. Her father would be finishing his shift soon. Sheriff Marcus Reed was the most honest man she knew. He'd tell her what to do, how to fight this. The sound of breaking branches made her look up. Tyler Hartman emerged from the tree line, followed by Jake, Ashley, and Derek. They moved with the casual confidence of people who'd never faced real consequences for their actions. Well, Tyler said, his voice carrying an edge she'd never heard before. Little Emma, all alone at her secret hideout. Emma stood slowly, her hand instinctively moving to her camera bag. "This is private property." "Actually," Jake smiled coldly, "my dad owns this land now. Bought it last month. So technically, you're trespassing." "Funny how that works out," Derek added. "Almost like someone knew you'd be here." The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. They'd been watching her, planning this. Emma backed toward the water, but the quarry stretched behind her for 50 yards in every direction. There was nowhere to run. "You're going to kill that story, Emma," Tyler said, moving closer. "Tonight, you're going to call Mrs. Patterson and tell her you made it all up." "I won't do that." "Yeah." Ashley spoke for the first time, her voice surprisingly gentle. "You must, because if you don't, things are going to get very bad for your dad. Corruption charges. Evidence of him taking bribes from my uncle's cases. Planted, of course, but who's going to believe the sheriff's daughter after she's been caught filing false reports?" Emma's world tilted. They weren't just threatening her, they were threatening the one person in the world she couldn't bear to lose. "You can't. He's done nothing wrong. Innocence is expensive," Jake said with a shrug, "and your family can't afford it." Emma looked at each face in turn, seeing no mercy, no hesitation. These weren't the kids she'd grown up with. They were something else entirely. Something shaped by privilege and protected by power. "Even if I kill this story," she said quietly, "someone else will investigate eventually. The truth has a way of coming out." "Maybe," Tyler conceded, "but not from you. Not ever from you." He nodded to Derek, who produced a small digital recorder from his pocket. "We need you to confess that you fabricated evidence against the Hartman family. made-up quotes, forged documents, the whole 9 yards. Emma stared at the device. Her entire journalistic reputation, her integrity, her future, all of it would die with that recording. But her father's life, his career, everything he'd worked for. And if I do this, you'll leave my dad alone. Scout's honor. Tyler grinned, though none of them had ever been scouts. Emma reached for the recorder, her hand shaking. The weight of defeat pressed down on her chest like a physical thing. She'd fought so hard, come so close to making a difference. Her fingers brushed the device, and suddenly her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Some things are worth more than safety. Baby girl, sometimes you have to stand up even when you're standing alone. Emma jerked her hand back. No, the word hung in the air like a challenge. Emma, Ashley's voice turned sharp. Don't be stupid. This is your only way out. No, it's not. Emma straightened her shoulders, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. Because you're not going to plant evidence on my father. You're not going to destroy his life. You know why? Tyler's face darkened. Enlighten us. Because he's Sheriff Marcus Reed, 20-year veteran, Purple Heart recipient, the man who cleaned up this town when your father's generation was running it into the ground. And if you think the state police or the FBI won't notice when a decorated small-town sheriff suddenly gets framed for corruption right after his daughter exposes a construction scandal, well, you're dumber than I thought. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across their faces. Emma pressed her advantage. My story runs tomorrow, and if anything happens to my father, or to me, or if I suddenly disappear, Mrs. Patterson has instructions to send copies of everything to the state attorney general's office. Along with this conversation, she held up her phone, its screen showing an active recording app. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then Tyler's expression shifted, and Emma realized she'd made a terrible mistake. There was no fear in his eyes, now only cold, calculating rage. You clever little bitch, he said softly. But you made one error. You assumed we were asking. They moved as one, surrounding her before she could react. Emma tried to run, but Jake caught her arm, spinning her back toward the group. Her phone flew from her hand, landing with a crack on the limestone rocks. You can't, Emma started, but Ashley's hand clamped over her mouth. Actually, we can, Tyler said, his voice eerily calm. See, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a tragic accident. Poor Emma Reed, overwhelmed by the pressure of senior year, takes a late-night swim and drowns. So sad, so preventable. Emma struggled against the hands holding her, her eyes wide with terror. The recording on your phone, water damage, your investigation files. Lost in your grief-stricken father's house fire next week, and the story. Well, Mrs. Patterson will be so traumatized by losing her star student that she'll never want to discuss journalism again. Derek pulled out a length of rope. The beauty of owning a quarry is that people sometimes fall in heavy rocks tied to your ankles, and you'll sink right to the bottom. By the time anyone finds you, if they ever do, it'll look like suicide. Depressed teenager, couldn't handle the pressure. Emma bit down hard on Ashley's hand, tasting blood. Ashley yelped and pulled away, and Emma screamed with everything she had. Help! Somebody help me! Her voice echoed off the quarry walls and disappeared into the empty forest. Tyler laughed. Scream all you want. We're 3 miles from the nearest house. But don't worry, this'll be over soon. They dragged her toward the water's edge. Emma fought with desperate strength, kicking and clawing, but 4 against 1 was hopeless. The rope bit into her ankles as Derek secured. Sheriff Marcus Reed pulled into his driveway at 8:47 p.m., the gravel crunching under his patrol car's tires. The porch light was off, unusual for Emma, who always left it on when she knew he was working late. The house sat in darkness, silent. As a tomb, Marcus climbed the front steps, his knees protesting after 16 hours on his feet. At 52, he felt every year of his service, 20 years as a cop. The last 8 as sheriff of Cedar County. His key turned in the lock, and he pushed open the door. I'm home. Silence. The living room was exactly as he'd left it that morning. Emma's journalism textbooks scattered across the coffee table, her laptop charging on the side table, her favorite mug still sitting beside the sink with the remnant of her morning coffee. But something felt wrong, a father's instinct honed by years of raising a daughter alone. Marcus checked the kitchen. No note on the refrigerator, no dinner left warming in the oven. Emma always cooked on Wednesdays, even if it was just boxed mac and cheese. It was their tradition, started after her mother died when Emma was 12. Emma, he called upstairs, taking the steps 2 at a time. Her bedroom door was open, bed unmade, clothes from that morning still draped over her desk chair. Her backpack sat beside her dresser, homework assignments spilling out across the floor. Emma was many things, but she never left homework unfinished. Marcus felt the first cold finger of worry trace down his spine. He pulled out his phone and dialed Emma's number. The call went straight to voicemail. Her voice, bright and confident. Hi, you've reached Emma Reed. I'm probably out chasing a story, so leave a message and I'll get back to you when I find the truth. The truth. Emma's obsession, her calling, her greatest strength, and Marcus feared her greatest vulnerability. He called 3 more times with the same result, then tried the landline. Nothing. Marcus went to Emma's laptop and opened her email, her social media accounts, looking for any clue about where she might have gone. Her last Facebook post was, "From that morning, big day today. Sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's scary. #truth, #journalism, #dad taught me well." The post had dozens of comments, but as Marcus scrolled through them, his worry deepened into something darker. Most were supportive, but others carried an edge that made his cop instincts flare. Some people should mind their own business. Hope you know what you're getting into. Read, your dad can't protect you from everything. Marcus screenshotted every comment, his hands steady despite the growing fear in his chest. 20 years of police work had taught him that when someone disappeared, the first 24 hours were critical. But this was his daughter, his only child, the center of his world since Sarah died. He called dispatch. "Linda, it's Marcus. I need you to put out a bolo for Emma. Last seen this morning around 7:30, driving her blue Honda Civic, license plate Delta-Charlie-7-4-91. Sheriff, it's only been, I don't care what protocol says. She's missing. Get every available unit looking for that car, and call me the second anyone spots it." Marcus hung up and grabbed his keys. If Emma was in trouble, he'd find her. He'd tear the county apart stone by stone if he had to. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of backroads and dead ends. Marcus drove every route Emma might have taken, checked every place she'd ever mentioned. The high school parking lot was empty, except for custodial staff. The library had closed at 6. No one remembered seeing her. The coffee shop where she sometimes worked on articles had been dead all evening. At 3 a.m., Linda's voice crackled over the radio. "Sheriff, we found the car." Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "We're Miller's Bluff. Overlook parking area. No sign of Emma, but Sheriff, you need to see this. Miller's Bluff, the scenic overlook where teenagers went to make out and troubled souls went to contemplate the 50-foot drop to the rocks below." Marcus had responded to 3 suicides there in his 8 years as sheriff. He arrived to find Deputy Chen already securing the scene, her flashlight beam dancing across Emma's Honda. The driver's door was open, keys still in the ignition. Emma's purse sat on the passenger seat, wallet intact, phone nowhere to be found. "Any footprints?" Marcus asked, his voice steadier than he felt. "Few sets leading to the edge, but the wind's been strong tonight. Hard to tell how fresh they are." Deputy Chen was young, barely older than Emma, but she had good instincts. "Sheriff, there's something else." She led him to the overlook's edge, where a section of the safety railing had been damaged, one of the metal posts bent outward, creating a gap just wide enough for a person to slip through. Marcus stared down at the jagged rocks below, illuminated by powerful flashlights from the search team already combing the base of the cliff. His daughter, his brilliant, stubborn, fearless daughter, reduced to this empty car and a bent railing. "I need the crime scene unit here," he said quietly. "Full workup, photos, fingerprints, everything. Sheriff, I know this is hard, but statistically this isn't a statistic. Chen, this is my daughter, and something's not right." Marcus turned away from the cliff, his mind already racing through possibilities. Emma doesn't give up, ever. She fights until her last breath, and then she fights some more. She wouldn't jump. Maybe she didn't mean to jump. Maybe she was upset, came here to think, and know. Marcus's voice carried the authority of 20 years of reading crime scenes. "Look at the car. Keys in the ignition, door open, purse untouched. If Emma was contemplating suicide, she'd have taken her phone to leave me a message. She'd have left a note. She'd have locked the car because that's who she is, responsible to the end." Deputy Chen nodded slowly. "So what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking someone wanted it to look like suicide. Question is why, and who benefits from my daughter being dead?" Marcus spent the rest of the night at Miller's Bluff, methodically examining every inch of the scene. As dawn broke over the valley, he found what he was looking for: fresh tire tracks in the soft earth behind the parking area, partially obscured by someone who'd tried to brush them away. Expensive tires, wider than most cars, probably an SUV or sports car. The tracks led back to the main road, but not before Marcus found something else. A small piece of fabric caught on a tree branch, navy blue with tiny white anchors. Emma's favorite shirt, the one she'd worn to school yesterday according to her Instagram post. Marcus bagged the evidence himself, his hands moving with practiced precision while his heart shattered. Someone had brought Emma here against her. Well, someone had staged this scene. Someone had murdered his daughter and thought they were smart enough to fool a sheriff. They were wrong. Back at the station, Marcus spread Emma's journalism files across his desk. If someone had killed her, it was connected to her work. He was certain of that. Emma had been investigating several stories, but one dominated her recent notes: the Hartman construction scandal. Marcus had heard rumors about Richard Hartman cutting corners on municipal contracts, but Emma's research was thorough, devastating. She had documented evidence of substandard materials, falsified inspection reports, and safety violations that put hundreds of people at risk. The story was scheduled to run in today's school newspaper. His desk phone rang. "Sheriff Reed, this is Principal Morrison. I was wondering if you'd heard from Emma this morning. She was supposed to deliver her final article to Mrs. Patterson, but she never showed up. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. What article? Something about construction standards. I believe, I'll be honest, Sheriff. There were concerns about potential legal issues. The Hartman family has significant resources. And if Emma's allegations were unfounded, were they unfounded? A long pause. I couldn't say, but the school board felt it was best to postpone publication until the claims could be verified through proper channels. Marcus hung up and immediately called Mrs. Patterson at home. Emma was so excited about that story, the journalism teacher said, her voice thick with worry. She'd been working on it for months. But yesterday, Principal Morrison made it clear that the article wouldn't run. Emma was devastated. Did she say what she was going to do about it? She said the truth had to come out, no matter what. That's the last thing she said to me. The truth has to come out. Marcus stared at Emma's research spread across his desk. Construction fraud, municipal corruption, powerful families, with everything to lose if the truth came to light. His daughter had stumbled onto something big, and someone had killed her for it. The desk phone rang again. This time it was the coroner's office. Sheriff, we found a body at the base of Miller's Bluff. Young female, matches the description of your missing person. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the world tilt on its axis. I'll be right there. The Millbrook County morgue was a sterile white room that smelled of disinfectant and death. Dr. Sarah Kim, the county coroner, met Marcus at the entrance with gentle eyes and a clipboard full of preliminary findings. I'm sorry, Marcus. I know how much Emma meant to you. Marcus nodded, unable to trust his voice. Can I see her? Dr. Kim led him to the examination table, where a body lay covered by a white sheet. She pulled it back, revealing the face of a young woman with dark hair and pale skin. But it wasn't Emma. Marcus stared in confusion. Who is this? Jennifer Walsh, 19, from Riverside County. Been missing for 3 weeks. Dental records confirm. Sheriff Marcus Reed sat in his locked office at 6 a.m., Emma's flash drive glowing in his computer's USB port. The files that loaded made his blood run cold, not just because of what they revealed, but because of how thoroughly his daughter had outmaneuvered a conspiracy that reached into every corner of Millbrook's power structure. The first folder contained copies of everything that had been destroyed in the journalism room, building permits with forged signatures, inspection reports that contradicted photographic evidence, bank records showing suspicious payments between Hartman, construction, and city officials. But it was the second folder that made Marcus reach for his coffee with shaking hands. Audio surveillance. Tyler Hartman and associates Emma had been recording Tyler's group for weeks, their voices crystal clear through hidden microphones she'd planted in their usual hangouts. Detailed not just the construction fraud but a web of corruption that involved half the town's leadership, Principal Morrison taking kickbacks to suppress unfavorable stories, District Attorney Vance covering up his nephew's drunk driving arrest, school board members receiving consulting fees for approving no-bid contracts. But the final audio file, time-stamped 7:23 p.m. the previous evening, made Marcus's world stop spinning. Tyler's voice.com and businesslike. She's secure at the quarry warehouse, tied up but alive. The plan hasn't changed. We wait until her body's discovered at Miller's Bluff. Let dear old dad grieve for a week, then finish the job and dump her where she'll never be found. Jake Morrison. What if the sheriff doesn't buy the suicide angle? Ashley Chen, with chilling pragmatism. Then we have leverage. Drop the investigation, or Emma dies. Either way, she's not walking out of that warehouse. Marcus yanked out his earbuds, his hands trembling with rage. The quarry warehouse, he knew exactly where that was. Richard Hartman's equipment storage facility, 5 miles east of town, isolated and surrounded by dense woods. Emma was there, alive, and these monsters were planning to murder her after letting him believe she was already dead. He was reaching for his radio to call for backup when his office door opened. District Attorney Frank Vance walked in without knocking, his usually immaculate suit wrinkled, his silver hair disheveled. Marcus, I heard about Emma. I'm so sorry for your loss. Marcus studied the man who'd been his colleague for 8 years, seeing him clearly for the first time. The expensive watch that didn't match a DA's salary, the defensive posture, the way his eyes kept flicking to the computer screen. Thank you, Frank. It's been a difficult night. I'm sure it has. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about this investigation. Sometimes when we're grieving, we can see conspiracies where none exist. Emma's death was a tragedy, but it was suicide. We need to accept that and move on. Marcus slowly closed Emma's files and ejected the flash drive. You're probably right. I guess I was looking for someone to blame. Relief flooded Vance's features. Exactly. And Marcus, I know money can't replace what you've lost, but the county has a generous survivors benefit program. With your service record, we could probably get you full retirement pay. You could travel, start fresh somewhere new. That's very generous. Marcus pocketed the flash drive and stood up. Frank, can I ask you something? Where were you last night between 7 and midnight? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Vance's smile faltered. I was at home with my wife. Why would you ask that? Just curious. See, I found some interesting evidence at Miller's Bluff. Tire tracks from an expensive SUV, placed there sometime between 8 and 10 p.m. You drive a BMW X7, don't you? Vance's face went pale. Marcus, you're not thinking clearly. Grief can make us paranoid. The thing about tire tracks, Frank, is they're like fingerprints. Every car leaves a unique pattern based on wear, alignment, tire pressure. I bet if I compared the tracks at Miller's Bluff to your BMW, they'd match perfectly. Marcus watched Vance's hand drift toward his jacket, probably reaching for a phone to warn his conspirators. But Marcus was already moving, 20 years of tactical training overriding his grief-stricken father's heart. Don't. Marcus's service weapon appeared in his hand with practiced speed. Put your hands where I can see them. Vance raised his hands, but his expression shifted from fear to calculating coldness. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Marcus. This goes deeper than you think. People with real power, real resources. You're one small-town sheriff against an entire network. Maybe, but I'm one small-town sheriff with nothing left to lose. Marcus pulled out handcuffs. Frank Vance, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and corruption. You have the right to remain silent. As Marcus finished reading Vance's rights, his radio crackled. Sheriff, we have a problem. 3 black SUVs just surrounded the station. Armed men are demanding to speak with you. Marcus looked through his office window at the parking lot below. The vehicles were positioned to cover all exits, and he could see at least a dozen men, in tactical gear, professional military-grade equipment. This wasn't local corruption anymore. This was something much bigger. His desk phone rang. Marcus answered it while keeping his gun trained on Vance. Sheriff Reed, this is Richard Hartman. I believe you have something that belongs to me. And I believe you have something that belongs to me. Hartman's laugh was cold as winter wind. Your daughter is safe, for now, but she won't stay that way if you don't listen very carefully. You're going to destroy whatever evidence Emma gathered, resign your position, and leave town within 24 hours. In exchange, Emma gets to live. I have a Marcus said, watching the tactical teams position themselves outside. You release my daughter immediately, and I don't put a bullet in your friend Vance's head while I explain to the FBI how deep this corruption goes. The FBI. Hartman's amusement was genuine. Sheriff, you really don't understand. This isn't some small-town conspiracy. The Hartman family has contracts with the Department of Defense, relationships with senators, connections that go all the way to Washington. Your little investigation threatens national security interests. Marcus felt the scope of what Emma had uncovered expanding like ripples in a pond. What kind of national security interests? The kind that require certain projects to be completed, on schedule, regardless of local building codes. The kind that make teenage journalists very dangerous when they start asking the wrong questions. Through his window, Marcus saw more vehicles arriving, not just SUVs now, but unmarked vans and cars with government plates. Whatever Emma had stumbled onto, it was big enough to mobilize federal resources. Here's what's going to happen, Hartman continued. You're going to walk out of that building with your hands up, get in the vehicle we provide, and come to a meeting. We'll discuss terms for Emma's release, and if I refuse, then Emma dies. Your station gets raided for evidence of corruption which we'll plant if necessary, and you spend the rest of your life in federal prison wondering what happened to your daughter's body. Marcus looked at Vance, who was watching with smug satisfaction despite the handcuffs. The DA nodded toward the window. They have snipers on the buildings across the street. Marcus, you're surrounded, outgunned, and out of your league, but they need you alive to control the narrative. Play along, and Emma might survive this. Marcus's mind raced through options, all of them bad. He could try to fight his way out, but that would get Emma killed. He could surrender and hope for the best, but these people had already committed multiple murders. Or he looked at his computer. Emma's research still fresh in his memory. She'd been smart enough to leave an insurance policy. Maybe it was time to use it. Hartman, I need 5 minutes to consider your offer. You have 2 minutes. Marcus hung up and immediately called his old partner from his state police days, Lieutenant Sarah Cross. She answered on the first ring. Marcus, I heard about Emma. I'm so sorry. Sarah, listen carefully. Emma's alive, but I'm about to walk into hell to get her back. I'm sending you a file everything Emma uncovered about a conspiracy involving federal contracts, construction fraud, and murder. If something happens to me, get it to Internal Affairs and the FBI. Marcus, what are you talking about? What conspiracy? Marcus uploaded Emma's files to a secure cloud server and sent Sarah the access codes. The Hartman construction scandal isn't just local corruption. It involves defense contracts, federal buildings, national security sites. Emma discovered that they've been using substandard materials in critical infrastructure projects across multiple states. Jesus Christ. How deep does this go? Deep enough that they have federal tactical teams surrounding my station. Sarah, if I don't make it out of this, promise me, you'll see that Emma's story gets told. Promise me, her death won't be for nothing. Emma's not going to die, and neither are you. I'm calling in every favor I have with the Bureau. Give me 30 minutes. I don't have 30 minutes. Marcus could see the tactical teams tightening their perimeter. They have Emma, and they'll kill her if I don't cooperate. But Sarah, once I'm gone, you hit them with everything. Every agency, every contact, every resource you have. Burn it all down. Marcus ended the call and looked at Vance, who was watching. With growing concern, you made a mistake, Frank. You assumed I was just a small-town sheriff. The convoy of black SUVs moved through Millbrook like a funeral procession, their tinted windows reflecting the morning sun as they carried Sheriff Marcus Reed toward what everyone assumed would be his final destination. In the lead vehicle, Marcus sat handcuffed between two federal contractors. District Attorney Vance across from him, while Richard Hartman's voice crackled through the radio. Remember, Sheriff, this doesn't have to end badly. Cooperate, and both you and Emma walk away from this. Cause problems, and neither of you will be found. Marcus stared out the window at the town he'd served for 8 years, watching familiar streets give way to rural roads that led toward the quarry. Every building, every landmark held memories of Emma, the library where she'd discovered her love of journalism, the park where he'd taught her to throw a curveball, the ice cream shop where they'd celebrated her acceptance to Northwestern University. Emma was supposed to start college in 3 months, supposed to change the world with her reporting, supposed to have a future that stretched out bright and endless. Instead, she was tied up in a warehouse, waiting for her father to save her or die trying. You're making a mistake, Marcus said quietly to the contractor beside him. The man, built like a linebacker with dead eyes and military posture, didn't respond. You think this is just about local corruption, but it's not. My daughter didn't just uncover construction fraud. She found something bigger, something that connects to federal contracts, defense projects, infrastructure that keeps this country running. And now that information is in the hands of people who can't be bought or threatened. Vance leaned forward. Marcus, even if that's true, it's too late. Once we're at the warehouse, there's no turning back. They'll kill Emma regardless of what happens to us. Will they? Marcus met Vance's eyes. Because I'm betting they need both of us alive? You too control the narrative. Me to legitimize Emma's supposed suicide. Dead cops raise questions. Living cops who resign in grief? That's just tragedy. The convoy turned onto the dirt road leading to Hartman's quarry operation. Through the trees, Marcus could see the warehouse, a massive concrete structure built into the hillside, originally designed for storing mining equipment, but now serving as a tomb for inconvenient truths. The vehicles stopped in a semicircle around the building's entrance. Marcus counted at least 20 armed men, all wearing tactical gear, all moving with the precision of professional soldiers. This wasn't just corruption anymore. This was a military operation designed to eliminate a teenage journalist and her father. Richard Hartman emerged from the warehouse, flanked by his son Tyler and the other 3 teenagers who'd murdered Emma at the quarry. Seeing them in daylight, knowing what they'd done, Marcus felt a rage so pure it threatened to burn through his restraint. Tyler looked exactly like his father. Same entitled posture, same absolute certainty that power made them untouchable. But there was something else in the boy's expression now. Fear. They'd expected this to be over by now. Expected Marcus to accept Emma's supposed death and fade away. Sheriff Reed, Richard Hartman, extended his hand as if they were meeting at a church social. I wish we could have met under better circumstances. Marcus ignored the offered handshake. Where's my daughter? Safe. Uncomfortable perhaps, but safe. She's quite remarkable actually. Even tied up and facing certain death. She's been lecturing my associates about journalistic ethics and the importance of truth in a democratic society. Despite everything, Marcus felt a surge of pride. That was his Emma, never giving up, never backing down, fighting with words, even when violence had failed. I want to see her, of course. But first, we need to discuss terms. Hartman gestured toward the warehouse entrance. Your daughter discovered something that threatens a multi-billion-dollar defense contract. Substandard materials in federal buildings, yes, but also in military bases, nuclear facilities, critical infrastructure across 17 states. If her investigation becomes public, it could compromise national security. Marcus followed Hartman into the warehouse, his eyes adjusting to the dim interior. The space was vast, filled with mining equipment and construction materials. And there, tied to a chair in the center of the floor, was Emma. She looked small under the harsh fluorescent lights, her clothes torn and dirty, her face bruised. But her eyes, those fierce green eyes she'd inherited from him, blazed with undiminished defiance. When she saw Marcus, her expression shifted to relief, then to warning. Dad, don't trust them. They killed Jennifer Walsh. They've been planning this for weeks. And Tyler Hartman backhanded her across the face, the sound echoing through the warehouse like a gunshot. Marcus lunged forward, but 2 contractors grabbed his arms. Touch my daughter again, Marcus said, his voice deadly quiet, and I'll kill you with my bare hands. Tyler smiled. You're not in a position to make threats, Sheriff. Actually, a new voice called from the warehouse entrance. I think he is. Everyone turned as Lieutenant Sarah Cross of the Pennsylvania State Police walked through the doorway. flanked by a dozen FBI agents in tactical gear. Behind them came more agents, more state police, more federal marshals than Marcus had ever seen in one place. Richard Hartman's confidence evaporated. "This is a federal operation. You have no jurisdiction here." Special Agent Jennifer Martinez, FBI, stepped forward with her badge displayed. "Actually, Mr. Hartman, we have all the jurisdiction we need. Thanks to Sheriff Reed's evidence upload, we've been tracking this conspiracy for the past 4 hours. Construction, fraud, murder, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice across state lines. Plus, your defense contracts just got revoked pending investigation." Marcus felt the contractors' grip loosen as they realized the magnitude of what was happening. 20 years of law enforcement had taught him to recognize the moment when criminals realized they'd lost in. That moment was now. "The beauty of Emma's investigation," Agent Martinez continued, "is how thoroughly she documented everything. Audio recordings, financial records, photographic evidence. Even her camera bag at the bottom of the quarry had a waterproof housing that preserved her final recordings." Tyler's face went white. "That's impossible. We made sure she was dead before you let her drown," Marcus finished. "Yes, Tyler, we heard that part too. Along with your confession to Jennifer Walsh's murder, your father's admission of the defense contract fraud, and District Attorney Vance's description of how you planned to frame me for corruption." The warehouse erupted in controlled chaos as federal agents moved to arrest everyone involved, but Marcus only had eyes for Emma, racing across the concrete floor to cut her bonds and pull her into his arms. "I'm sorry, baby," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." Emma hugged him fiercely, her body shaking with exhaustion and relief. "You did protect me, Dad. You taught me to always leave evidence, to never investigate alone, and to never give up on the truth. Even when they threw me in that quarry, I knew you'd figure it out. How did you survive?" The recordings showed the waterproof housing on my camera bag had an emergency beacon. When it hit bottom, it started transmitting GPS coordinates to a backup server I'd set up. I held my breath as long as I could, then activated the beacon manually before I passed out. A diving team found me 20 minutes later. Marcus stared at his daughter in amazement. "You faked your own death." "I had to. It was the only way to stay alive long enough for you to uncover the conspiracy. I knew if they thought I was dead, they'd get careless. Start talking, reveal the scope of what they were hiding." Across the warehouse, Richard Hartman was being led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling around him. Tyler and his accomplices followed, their entitled expressions replaced by the dawning realization that privilege couldn't protect them from federal prison. But it was Frank Vance's arrest that gave Marcus the most satisfaction. 20 years of friendship, destroyed by greed and corruption. As the former DA was led past Emma's chair, she looked up at him with those fierce green eyes. "Mr. Vance, the story runs tomorrow. Front page of the Washington Post, New York Times, and every major newspaper in the country. Your nephew Derek's confession, the audio of Tyler planning my murder, all of it. The truth always comes out." Vance stopped, his face crumpling with defeat. "Emma, I never wanted you to get hurt. When this started, it was just about covering up some construction shortcuts. But then it grew, and grew. And by the time we realized how deep we were, you had a choice," Emma interrupted. "Every day, you had a choice to do the right thing. You chose money over justice, power over truth. Now you get to live with that choice for the rest of your life." As the last of the conspirators were led away, Agent Martinez approached Marcus and Emma. "Sheriff Reed, I want you to know that your daughter's investigation may have prevented a catastrophic infrastructure failure. The materials Hartman was using in federal buildings were so substandard that we could have seen collapses within 5 years. Emma didn't just expose corruption, she saved lives." Emma leaned against her father's shoulder, exhaustion finally overtaking adrenaline. "I just wanted to tell the truth. I never imagined it would be this big. The best journalists never do," Marcus said softly. "They just follow the story wherever it leads, even when it's deep."